Hi everybody, Jim Hamilton here with Core Resonance and the first colony. This is Elyce. What's your last name?
Monet.
Monet. Thank you. How well do we know each other and your last name doesn't come to mind? So you're part of the first colony, which is a really powerful idea of what we've accomplished and what we've achieved. And in fact, if I remember right, you've been a powerful component of pulling the whole thing together in the first place. Do you remember how all of this started?
I do, actually. I invited you and your lovely counterpart over for dinner, and we started talking, and then I invited you to one of our Gene Keys meetings that I host and facilitate. And after that Gene Keys meeting, you got very excited because we all were talking about consciousness. And you realized that this group was very excited about growth, about changing themselves and raising their vibration and their consciousness level to be able to change the planet. And you saw the synchronicities with your core resonance program, and so you picked up the phone and gave me a call.
As I remember it, I actually pitched you 3 times, tried to introduce core resonance colonies to you 3 times. And once you were at the house, come here and sit down. And I made you sit and let me present my ideas again, and then the whole thing fired up. And I met your group and what you guys are doing, and it's a very natural expression of coming together in contribution with an idea that's probably bigger than we even know, even though we think we glimpse what it is.
Well, I'm sure of that, because all of us are so open to source. And we really are excited to learn more and try more things. And when you finally got it through my thick skull about core resonance, I saw the synchronicity of what we're both doing. And it was an exciting day to be able to say, let's pull together a team. I can remember when that happened. I was sitting at your desk and you said, let's do it. Let's do the first colony.
I got the people.
Yeah, and I said, yeah, okay, I'll get the people. And I started making phone calls. And the group that we have now is the result of those phone calls. And we've just taken off. It's been extremely exciting. And it's grown us much more closely together as a group.
It's definitely bigger than we might have guessed. It's certainly bigger, especially initially, than I expected. But here we are. I still don't know how many months we are from
5.5.
5.5 months. That if nothing else, we're stronger than ever. We've had the summertime, and we've had several people, actually maybe even 3, have recommitted out of our group, which means a new commitment, even though they already have it, to going forward. Because we're seeing it, not only are we seeing it, we're recognizing that we're kind of riding a little bit on the energy of the whole that we've created. I call it surfing that, but here we are up and running. So I remember we did the very first long view in the media room before we moved over.
Right.
But what is your recollection of the long view and your introduction to this and moving into it and sense of what you discovered?
Well, because I was the leader, I jumped up front and center first, and you and I did the long view, and we did the sharp even before the new cats came in.
Right.
And I was putting paste in my hair and all kinds of weird things like that. And you were parting my hair, and it was we were laughing about how long it took us to do all that. My experience with it was really intriguing to me, because with long view, I can remember you setting me up and then me going into the program, and it's like I was able to so focus and go into the program. It was like you said to me once, I think you're the commander of a spaceship, because I was like controlling, the whole process. And I guess you explained to me that that's what that frontal lobe was supposed to do, was drive the process. So it was intriguing. I wasn't sure at the very first what would come of that. But it was evident almost immediately that I felt great after I did it. And then I started extending the time, and then I noticed where my brain got a little tired, and you and I talked about that. And I called you one day, and you said, "Come on, let's do humic." And so I did humic with it. We were experimenting before we even got the group started.
That's right, humic acid.
And so I was drinking humic acid before I started, and I went home feeling like my whole third eye was like this big, and
We call that a trucker third eye.
it was like wow, and it was an interesting experience. So we got to play a while about how this thing would feel and what it would do with the group, and I jumped in with both feet because I saw the advantages immediately. And then you got me started on sharp, and even with the paste, it was a pain to do. We spent a couple hours each time to do the protocols, and I can remember at first being very critical of myself because the screen was flashing so much. And I realized that the more calm I got, the less the screen flashed in sharp. And the screen flashing is my brain trying to figure out what's wrong with itself so that it can correct. And so as I saw progress with the less flashing, I got more excited. And as you know, I told you I had massive brain trauma in 2003. And so one of the things I was experimenting with was, is this a way that I can heal the trauma in my brain? And I'm finding that it is. And that's not a medical, connotation for core resonance, but I believe that you've stumbled onto something that is very profound with the innate intelligence coming in to heal yourself.
Well, most neurofeedback starts with a brain map, and somebody in a lab coat will go, and decide this is what your brain should look like. And so they will use protocols, which are exercises or programs, and try to push the frequencies of the brain around so it should look like what an average of 1,000 or 10,000 brains would look like. And what I discovered was how to let the brain discover itself through the hardware software, let the brain find itself, and let the brain clean itself up. Instead of some guy with a lab coat and maybe a couple of restraining orders against him over the last 25 years, because there is such a thing.
Right.
And so as we learn how to let the brain find itself, in neurofeedback it's called rewards and inhibits, and a reward is when the video is strong or bright, and an inhibit, which means it's not, the exercise, the brain's not doing exercise well, you get dark, which is, the difference between the stutter or the bright and so as the brain learns the exercise, you get a steadier video, and the brain sees that as feedback for what it's trying to learn how to do, because we are giving it an exercise. That's as close as we get to programming. We ask it to do something for which it learns how to do it through the hardware software. And so it's really a hands-off approach. We don't have humans deciding what your brain should look like, which ain't that good of a way to do things. So,
right. It's exciting that it's innate intelligence that's healing you instead of some guy in a lab coat.
Well, so we're working our way by quieting the nervous system, causing the component parts of the brain to talk to each other. Brain quiets down in that subtle connection. I'll tell you something interesting. That subtle connection has always been there, but the guidance, I discovered that the guidance in the Holy Spirit is the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so I don't use religious connotations in my work, but you can see the Holy Spirit, and I have talked to a few religious people about it, but guidance in the Holy Spirit is the same thing.
I agree.
And this is what we're learning how to do, is learning how to listen at a subtle level, because the guidance is always there. It always will be there. It'll always be there. It's like a broadcast from the cosmos for which everything is in play when they're plugged in. And the humans are the only thing on the planet out of sync with that, and we're dysfunctional species. So we're working on fixing that, right?
Exactly. And one of the things that I truly recognized was after, with my Gene Keys work that I do, and facilitating that group and that, which has the same goal of less resistance, more a source, right?
Yeah.
Same goal, just different methodology. The thing that I realized was one of the genetic patterns that I had in my life was not trusting my own guidance, right? The insecurity or the inferiority or feeling not good enough and maybe somebody knows better than I do. And I think what core resonance has helped with, in addition to my Gene Keys work simultaneously, but what core resonance has done is given me instant feedback that you're on the right track. I don't know how to explain that, but it's been in my face. The guidance is just right there. I don't deny it like I used to, which is that's great. So there's no resistance to the feedback. And as I allow the feedback and I act on the feedback, miracles have happened. The fact that my business is, that I'm able to do 3 times more than I did, and I was a go-getter to begin with, but now I am able to do 3 times the work with complete ease and flow and not feeling rushed and not feeling pressured, and the timing always works out. It just always works out. I don't have to worry about it. I'm beyond time. It's just allowing things to happen on their own, allowing the universe to take control. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Well, it's actually simple in a way, because if you think about it from a mechanical perspective, our nervous system is our center. Your nervous system is full of what's called all cells have microtubules in them. And I believe that neuronal cells, your neurons, your nervous system cells, have a higher propensity of microtubules. And a physicist I used to work with, microtubules, as I come to understand microtubules, is they're like structured water, tiny inside a cell, and I think it's like a portal, is what it actually is.
Like a wormhole.
And so the nervous system has a propensity of microtubules, and that is the connection. And so you've got all different parts of your body, you've got the bones and all different things, but the nervous system is like a living antenna system. I do believe it's true, because in my years of meditating, that's what it felt like, learning how to listen with the nervous system and sensing our way back to our connection, for which guidance naturally becomes available. In fact, I tell you, the guidance is there anyway, but we don't have the ability to process it because we're running in an overly loaded, rackety mindset or overload, and so we can't handle the subtle.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because when we met, I didn't have a lot of the mind, over-processing or the load like that. But what I did still have was old trauma, right? And so those old traumas would come up and make themselves known every now and then, and that would be like, so they were really buried. It was deep within my genetic code, and using core resonance and relaxing the central nervous system allows those things to come up to be cleared, and that is a miracle in and of itself. If we can learn just to let it be, right? Just be, and let the body and the brain and whatever needs to happen.
Let it do it itself.
Let it do it itself. We're going to be much better off.
Instead of trying to run it.
Instead of trying to run it, and instead of trying to jump to a doctor, there's something wrong with me, I have PTSD, give me a pill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we're learning, what we've seen in this colony, this first colony, is a group of people who admittedly had a relationship because they were doing some work together. We started doing the neurofeedback, and what we've seen is almost a spectacular experience of synchronicity and consciousness and new kinds of quietude and introspection, and at the same time we're busier than ever, the world is crazier than ever, but we've kind of created something for which we're partnering with something very worthwhile, the Big Kahuna, if you will.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying he, that's not what I mean. There's an energy that underlies everything, and as my work has always said, intermediaries, why? Go straight for the whole thing. And we discovered the nervous system is how you do that, how you reach out and touch what's real.
Mhm. And I see it in all of the group, and we all talk about it, where
Yeah.
where we have seen the growth in each other, where we have seen our own personal growth and have been able to put that into words. And where we've been, I can see where my group is getting even better and better at serving community. In they're more prolific in understanding their service better, they're understanding themselves better. It's pretty cool to watch. And I can say after 5.5 months, we've expedited this entire process, that we were on that track anyway in
Right.
community. But the core resonance has just exponentially multiplied our efforts. And so we're very grateful for that.
Isn't it interesting that this is the last of the interviews of the first colony, and only now do we figure it's 5.5 months since we fired this up?
Yeah.
Because nobody's paying attention.
Right, no.
Nobody's paying attention.
No. And we had, we all went through, it was an interesting thing, and as we do more colonies, it'll be interesting data to accumulate if every colony goes through these little lapses, because when we first started, everybody was revved up, we were all excited, we had great response, and then bingo, a lot of stuff hit. And I see that as the central nervous system releasing some of those traumas and things that weren't supposed to be in our lives being brought up for us to clear and say, no, that should not be in my life, I'm ready to let that go now. And so we all kind of went through that. There was a cleansing process, a purging process, so to speak.
Nothing difficult about it, though.
No, it wasn't difficult, but it's still it still came up, and you still have to clear it. And I found the more I went to core resonance, the faster it went and the easier it got. Okay, but we did have a lot of traveling people that had to travel for business and whatever, and
We've just come out of a wild summer, no matter what anybody says.
right. But what's exciting is everybody's gone through their stuff and all recommitted and stronger than ever. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen in the next 5.5 months.
Oh, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So one of the ideas you touched on was the idea of colonies, and my wish, of course, is to see this replicate itself, and for some reason I have a number of 1,350 colonies around the planet, and they're modeled after the idea of the Maharishi effect, which is when people meditate, a group of meditators, real meditators, become empty, which is to say no mind, innate intelligence expresses through them with no distortion, and 4,000 meditators can knock down crime in Washington, D.C. in 1993, reduce it by 23.3%. I understand that automobile accidents dropped the same amount at the same time. It's just people becoming empty, letting innate intelligence express through with no distortion, and we're doing that in a very amped up manner.
Yes.
Because I think we better understand the nervous system's role, and by actually giving the nervous system, the brain being the single biggest part, giving it exercise. What happens when you do the exercise, it's like the neurons are up and everybody's active, and when the exercise is over, the brain lays them back down where it can find them. That's kind of how you might say the organization takes place. It's not defragging a hard drive, because that's way too mechanical. But you got all the neurons up and busy in the activity, and when it's over, they lay them back down. The brain lays them back down where it can get to them better. And that's how the brain organizes itself.
Well, it makes sense. And in most of the higher consciousness models, it's about self-reorganization. It's about it's about allowing our innate intelligence to reorganize us, not us doing it. So it makes sense. It's just that this process that you've developed expedites it all.
We are actually nothing more, in my opinion, than a very fancy mechanism for innate intelligence to express through, for which we get the ride of our lives.
Well, and that's what it's been. It's been the ride of our lives, and I'm excited to take it to the next level. I'm excited for the 1,350 colonies, and
I think that's all it's going to take.
Yeah, well, 1,350 colonies at 10 million per person. I mean, you're talking a lot of people. We could cover the whole planet. And I know we've talked about heart math and all of the things that heart math is doing, which is great work.
They do coherence work.
And they do coherence work. And it's all in the same principle of us letting go and allowing innate intelligence to come through. And when we do that, things change. And our world can change. And I'm excited about that.
The hard part is using the mind to let go of the mind. So we build a tool that re-enables this connection, and the mind will naturally subside. Because you can't use the mind to shut the mind off.
Mm-hmm.
So as this connection becomes enabled, the mind will let it happen. It recognizes it for what it is. It's bigger than the mind, and the mind will subside and allow this connection to grow and to do its thing.
So,
It's natural.
Jim, I'm really grateful to you for allowing me to take part in the first colony and to be a facilitator of that. And I'm looking forward to many, many colonies together. And I hope we can get this thing launched and put it all over the planet.
I knew that's what's going to happen. I had to pitch you 3 times.
Third time's the charm,
I'm
right?
telling you.
High five it.
High five is right. So thank you, Elyce. Thank you, everybody. We'll continue. Namaste.